There was good and there was bad with the NFL draft. Obviously, we have the good, the fact that I got to go talk to Bijan Robinson. That was pretty cool. The fact that he finds a phenomenal landing spot where you're going to get a ton of rush attempts. But there was also some bad in that we have Kenneth Walker plummeting down these rankings because of Zach Charbonnet. We have Jamir Gibbs going to replace DeAndre Swift. We have a whole lot to talk about. We actually have some hidden winners from the NFL draft as well. But before we get into it, you better be dropping a like on this video. You better be subscribed to the channel. And of course, if you want to get access to my fantasy football rankings or access to the fantasy football rankings of all your favorite content creators, you can find that over there on flockfantasy.com. Sign up with promo code FLOCK and yours truly is going to go through and break down your team with an in-depth podcast. And with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get 30% off any subscription. Couldn't be more excited about flockfantasy.com, and I think you're going to love it. But I think we should go into these rankings, right? Let's talk about the numero uno guy here in Christian McCaffrey. Now, with CMC in his own tier, not really much changes in the NFL draft. I mean, if we were going to look at anything changing over the foreseeable future, really, it's just going to come down to who the starting quarterback is in San Francisco. Now, for the purpose of Christian McCaffrey scoring as many points as possible, you're wanting it to be Brock Purdy, right? You're wanting it to be Brock Purdy where he himself is not going to vulture many rushing touchdowns at the goal line. At the same time, it's not like Purdy's some phenomenal rushing quarterback, so he's going to be going through and taking up some of those rushing yards in his own right. We want Brock Purdy if you are a Christian McCaffrey owner. Now, selfishly, because Trey Lance right now is my most drafted player on Underdog, because I have Trey Lance in a million dynasty leagues, I want Trey Lance to be the starting quarterback of the 49ers, but in my mind, that would actually hurt Christian McCaffrey, because with Lance, since he can run the ball in his own right, I think that you're going to see some touchdowns vultured at the goal line, as well as Trey Lance not wanting to dump the ball off as much as a stationary quarterback would. So let me know what y'all are thinking with the quarterback situation in San Francisco. Really think that's going to be the only thing we have to watch out for with Christian McCaffrey. But now going over to numero dos, we are going to have Bijan Robinson. And yes, I will be the first person to admit that I am probably a bad person to talk about Bijan with. I literally went to the University of Texas. I literally just got to talk to Bijan Robinson on the red carpet. It would be difficult for you to find a bigger Bijan Robinson fanboy than yours truly, right? Now, if we are going to put all that aside, we can say this is a running back that was just selected inside the top 10 picks of the NFL draft. He goes to a team that wants to lead the NFL in rushing attempts with Arthur Smith calling the shots. And you can possibly see Bijan Robinson turning into Arthur Smith's Derrick Henry. And Bijan, what is most impressive about him is he can actually catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, if you're looking at his receiving down usage at Texas, it's not like you have, Bijan Robinson just getting some random dump offs. He's running real routes, okay? He's not just operating behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's going out there and almost being used as a receiver at some points. So I am a massive fan of Bijan Robinson. I do kind of feel like maybe I'm just being a fanboy, but at the same time, right now in underdog drafts, Bijan Robinson is clearly the running back 2 in ADP. Pretty much in every draft, you're saying he's going to go right behind Christian McCaffrey. Now at 3, we are going to have Jonathan Taylor in the same tier. Anthony Richardson goes over to Indianapolis, right? And if we're going to be looking at Anthony Richardson, this will be a quarterback that I think improves the Indianapolis Colts overall. But because Richardson has his own rushing upside, we are going to have to deal with some rushing touchdowns going to the quarterback here. We're going to have to deal with not as many dump offs, because naturally when your quarterback can run the ball, what happens is when that pocket collapses, instead of them looking to dump the ball off immediately to the running back out of the backfield, they can tuck it and they can run themselves. This is why historically, when Lamar Jackson is the starting quarterback in Baltimore, the running backs there don't really catch passes. You can see kind of the same thing with Jalen Hurts this past year. See the same thing with Justin Fields this past year. I don't know if Richardson's going to be to that extent, but it will be something we have to be slightly concerned with. Now at 4, we are going to have Austin Ekeler. Now, the reason I'm making these rankings half PPR is because that's what Underdog is. Underdog's half PPR, and I'd imagine the majority of people watching this are getting in Underdog drafts right now. If it was a full PPR format, I could see you moving Austin Ekeler ahead of Jonathan Taylor here. Now, you do have to naturally be concerned because Austin Ekeler is an older running back now, and with Austin Ekeler, they have yet to give him the contract extension. Now, I will say, because they don't really invest in anybody in the NFL draft, You don't have to be as concerned as maybe you were previously, but we still have the uncertainty with Austin Ekeler wanting the contract extension and possibly being shipped out of Los Angeles. However, if you were playing in a full PPR format, move Ekeler up these rankings. And the second that Austin Ekeler gets the contract extension, he will be moved up these rankings as well. There's just a little uncertainty at the moment. Now, speaking of uncertainty, we have Saquon Barkley here as well. So Barkley looks like he's not reporting until he gets his own contract extension. So these two guys will just be running backs that we have to continue to monitor. And the second that they extend, the second that we know they will be playing this next season and we know the exact situations, then I'll be more willing to entertain them ahead of Bijan Robinson, ahead of Jonathan Taylor. Well, obviously, we don't have to deal with that right now. Now, if you're drafting on Underdog, you will notice that all these running backs are going anywhere from the middle of the first round to the beginning of the second round. Here's where you're going to see the big drop on Underdog in terms of the tiers and where these guys are going to go. Nick Chubb will be our next RB, and he is going to be going at the 2-3 turn generally. Now, of course, if you're not on Underdog, naturally, these running backs are going to be a little bit higher. But on Underdog, we are highly incentivized to go with wide receivers given the best ball format. And of course, if you're not drafting on Underdog, fix your life right now. I mean, you can find the link in the comment section, find it in the description. Sign up for Underdog with promo code FLOCK. You're going to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. If you're a member of Underdog and FlockFantasy.com, you're going to get an additional special credit in your Underdog account, even if you signed up to Underdog years ago with promo code FLOCK, and you'll get exclusive merch going in your direction. I'll give you more details on that sometime soon, but I mean, they just launched their $15 million best ball contest, and I've been having a ton of fun drafting there already. But yeah, with Nick Chubb, he wins the NFL draft. You have nobody going over to Cleveland. So it's like Nick Chubb, Jerome Ford, they haven't re-signed Kareem Hunt. So, I mean, this is a team that should be better with Deshaun Watson now with the full offseason under his belt. Nick Chubb's a pretty damn good running back. It's a great offensive line, and really nothing's changed in his scenario. Now, going over to 7, we're going to have Breece Hall. Now, with Breece Hall, it's a little difficult, right? Because I've been burned time and time again betting on these running backs coming off a torn ACLs a little too early. Now, what I like about the Breece Hall profile is this is a phenomenal pass catcher. At one point last year, he was only behind Austin Ekeler in targets at the running back position. You have the quarterback upgrade with Aaron Rodgers. We can assume the offense is better overall. And with Breece Hall, he tears his ACL at the beginning of the season, not near the end of the year. And it's also not like Javonte Williams' torn knee, where Javonte Williams tore a million different things. Breece Hall, supposedly a clean ACL tear. We're not having to be as concerned about it. Now, at 8, we are going to have our most drafted running back in fantasy last year, our most drafted player in fantasy football last year, Josh Jacobs. I mean, he's the primary reason we won $150,000 on Underdog last season, but nonetheless, with Jacobs, the situation really hasn't changed. I honestly haven't been drafting him as much. He's going at the 2-3 turn now. We used to get him in the 7th round on Underdog last season. So maybe I'm just a little bit biased here. Maybe it's difficult for me to now pay that premium on him. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Going over to 9, we're going to have Tony Pollard. Now, you'll see Pollard goes before these guys in the majority of drafts, and I understand why. I think I honestly may be making the same mistake with Tony Pollard that we could be making with Josh Jacobs. I just, in general, have a difficult time looking at a running back that we are used to getting in round 6, round 7, round 8, season after season after season, and then saying, well, hell, let's go ahead and let's now draft this guy in the top 15 picks. Now, with that being said, Dallas really doesn't have anybody there. Yes, I understand they take a running back in Deuce Vaughn on day 3. Deuce Vaughn's not any good. Please don't fool yourself otherwise. So Pollard will project to get a ton of volume. People that are a lot smarter than I am have Pollard higher than this in their rankings. So if you wanted to go through and if you wanted to draft Pollard ahead of this, I'm fine with it. Now, 10, we're going to have Derrick Henry. And I can already hear the people down there in the comment section going, Mason, you clown. How is Derrick Henry this low? Couple different things. One, this offense looks like it will probably be the worst it's been in years. Like, we don't really know what the quarterback situation is going to be. Right now, it looks like you have a 3-way battle between Tannehill, Levis, and Malik Willis. I mean, I think it would be laughable if they put Malik Willis in there at quarterback at this point. But nonetheless, we have a very bad offense. We have a running back that historically is not a great pass catcher. And we have a running back that is about to turn 30 years old at the end of this season. So top to bottom, the profile has a lot of red flags. But at the end of the day, I mean, hell, if you've ignored those red flags with Derrick Henry year after year after year, and you've said, well, you know what, Mason, Who freaking cares? Derrick Henry is one of the most talented running backs in the NFL. You've been printing money, and honestly, maybe you should ignore me here. Now, going down to our next tier, one of my most drafted running backs on Underdog so far has actually been Travis Etienne. You're getting Etienne at the end of round 3, and in my mind, this is an ascending offense. Travis Etienne's going into year 2 starting for Jacksonville, and not only does Travis Etienne profile to be a 3-down back, but I think we could see a massive step forward this next season with his receiving down ability. I think all of a sudden, if the Jacksonville Jaguars continue to take strides, we could see more touchdowns be available because there'll be more trips to the red zone. And if we go back to his time at Clemson, Travis Etienne's a great passing down running back. He wasn't necessarily used that way this past year in Jacksonville, but I think the more he gets incorporated into this offense, keep in mind last year was really his first season in the NFL, the better Etienne will get. It's an elite running back prospect in my mind, playing in an elite ascending offense. I really like him. I'm not worried about Tank Bigsby. I think Bigsby is probably just going to take a 50% role of what James Robinson had last year. Now, going over to our next guy, we will have Rameses Stevenson here at 12. I honestly almost want to put Najee Harris here in 12. Now, Najee Harris is a top 3 most drafted running back for me right now on Underdog. I'll have Stevenson ahead of him. Stevenson's also another winner of the NFL draft where they don't really add anybody. Obviously, Harris goes over to Buffalo. The reason I'm going to put Najee at 13 and Stevenson at 12, even if I think Najee could be a little bit higher, is you're getting Najee Harris in the middle of round 4 right now. In my mind, Najee Harris at this price point is a must draft player. Last year, we weren't drafting him. If y'all remember, we made videos saying, why the hell would you draft Najee Harris? Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery are the same guy, and you can get him in round 7. And back then, everybody screamed, how dare you say Najee Harris is as bad as Josh Jacobs, blah, blah. I think people are just overreacting here. I mean, if you're going to be realistic, with Najee Harris, he went into the season injured last year. He played behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. He had a combination of Mitchell Trubisky as well as a rookie quarterback behind center. Realistically speaking, what should we have expected from Najee Harris? How was he supposed to succeed in that scenario? Now, Trubisky's gone. Kenny Pickett going into year 2, we can assume that he's much better than he was his rookie season. The offensive line is improved dramatically this offseason. And Najee Harris is fully healthy, and they decide to do nothing at the running back position. They don't bring anybody else in. So I hate to do this. I mean, last year when he was one of our most avoided players in round 1, this year, Najee Harris is one of our most drafted guys in round 4. I think he is a better pick regardless of the cost compared to where he was last year. And to throw on the fact that he cost significantly less, I think he should have been a 4th round pick last year and maybe closer to like a 2nd or a 3rd round pick this season. So we can rank Najee Harris down here at 13 in the same tier as Etienne and Stevenson, and you can still get him in a ton of drafts. Now, our next guy we're going to rank ahead of ADP, we will have Jamir Gibbs here. Jamir Gibbs, also one of our most drafted players on Underdog so far. I mean, guys, I don't know what to say. They trade away DeAndre Swift, right? With Jamir Gibbs, he's the number 12 pick overall. He's an elite athlete. He's a phenomenal pass catcher. I do have my concerns with his size, but that's the reason Jamir Gibbs is way down here. I mean, hell, he's going to be in tier 5 here compared to Bijan Robinson in tier 2. I mean, if Jamir Gibbs had no red flags, if he had the same size as Bijan Robinson, he'd probably be up there with Saquon Barkley, Nick Chubb. But that's going to be the one knock that we have against him is BMI hovering around like 29.5. We'd really like to see that closer to like 30 and a half. Now, going down to our next tier, Kenneth Walker at 15. This is where you kind of have to like catch the falling knife, right? Because when Best Ball Mania, the $15 million tournament on Underdog launched a few days ago, Kenneth Walker was going in round 3. And I've drafted about 10 teams on Underdog since that tournament launched, and I have drafted 0 Kenneth Walker. The main reason is because Kenneth Walker always goes before Najee Harris, before Jamir Gibbs. Why the hell would I ever draft him there? Now, yes, Walker was our 2nd most drafted running back last year, only behind Josh Jacobs, so this is someone that I really like the talent profile of. But to ignore the fact that the Seattle Seahawks go and invest a 2nd round pick into Zach Charbonnet, go and draft Jackson Smith and Jigba as well. They have so many offensive weapons here that the overall market share we should assume that Kenneth Walker sees this next season, it's going to be dramatically lower. I love the player. It's just like you can't ignore what the Seattle Seahawks just did in the draft. Now, going over to 16, we'll have Aaron Jones. Really didn't know what to assume with Aaron Jones coming into this next year. I mean, you have a quarterback change, and also at the same time with Aaron Jones, really didn't have the guaranteed contract, but he restructures, so he will be in Green Bay for sure. Looks like A.J. Dillon's fallen out of favor a bit, so Jones is like a safe pick. I mean, I don't really know exactly what to assume just because Jordan Love is such a mystery box. If you have a strong take on Jordan Love, I'd love to hear it in the comment section. Now, a running back that we will be ranking significantly higher than ADP. He was a buy low guy for us in Dynasty before the NFL draft, Damien Pierce. Now, Damien Pierce, if y'all remember, I got it wrong last year, right? I mean, we were going through and saying, oh my gosh, Damien Pierce, a 4th round rookie, is being drafted in round 5. He's being drafted in round 6 before we see anything based off some offseason hype. I am not interested in that at all. Hard pass. I'm not taking Damien Pierce at all there. Well, I wish I would have because, hell, Damien Pierce crushed his rookie season. And now going into year 2, Damien Pierce is going in the 7th round on Underdog. I mean, sometimes he's sneaking into the 6th. I've gotten him in the 7th. So you're telling me that Damien Pierce comes out, has a phenomenal year 1. Then at the same time, the Houston Texans go out of their way and they dramatically improve their offense by getting CJ Stroud in here, and you're not having to deal with Davis Mills anymore. So you get a massive upgrade with the overall Houston Texans offense. We have confirmation that the Texans are into Damien Pierce because the only thing they do is sign a backup running back in Devin Singletary. And now he is the same price that he was going into last year with so many question marks, with the Houston Texans having Davis Mills at QB. Very similar to Najee. I wasn't drafting Damien Pierce last year, but honestly, if he stays at his ADP, he'll be one of my most drafted players in fantasy. Now, 18, Miles Sanders. I mean, kind of a boring pick, right? With Miles Sanders, he's actually going about a round to 2 rounds ahead of Damien Pierce on Underdog right now. Now, my thing is, hell, if you're looking at Sanders, he's a running back on his 2nd contract. He doesn't look as good as Damien Pierce. Why are we going to take the descending asset versus the ascending asset when we have question marks about both their offenses? I mean, we really don't know who's going to be better between Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. If I had to make my bet, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Bryce Young, but I could easily be wrong with that. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Damien Pierce over Sanders easily, even if the ADP doesn't show that. Now, our next tier, we're going to have J.K. Dobbins at 19. And this is what I'm a little bit worried about when it comes to Breece Hall, right? Because J.K. Dobbins was a running back that I went hard on last season. We were looking at how good he was as a prospect coming out of Ohio State. We are also looking at the fact that with J.K. Dobbins, this was a running back that was hyper efficient as a rookie. And he was playing in an offense that possibly wanted to lead the NFL in rushing. Now, of course, we have a different offensive coordinator at this point than what we thought we were going to have with the Baltimore Ravens. So yes, maybe they skew a little bit more pass happy now. But still, at the end of the day, if we are looking at J.K. Dobbins, everything remains the same that we liked about him last year. The Baltimore Ravens don't do anything at the running back position. It just didn't perform. And I think maybe it was a little too close to the torn ACL. So I'm getting a little nervous about Breece Hall and why I can't have Breece Hall as a top 5 guy. Now, 20, we are going to have DeAndre Swift. And no lie, yes, the Philadelphia Eagles offense 10 times better than Detroit, right? So maybe you're saying, well, Mason, I mean, how is DeAndre Swift this low if he was higher in our rankings last year in a better situation? Well, the thing is, if the coaching staff that's in the room with DeAndre Swift that sees Swift on a day-to-day basis goes, you know what? Yeah, this ain't it. Let's ship DeAndre off. Let's only get a 4th round pick in return, and let's draft Jamir at 12, right? If those guys in the room with DeAndre Swift make that decision, it does naturally concern me. It does make me a little bit worried about DeAndre Swift, and maybe he's just not as good as we initially thought he was. I mean, I don't know. Let me know what you're thinking. It's obviously a good situation in Philadelphia. There's not much competition there at all. Just a little nervous based off what that coaching staff's telling us, but keep in mind, it is the freaking Detroit Lions. Now, going over to our next guy, we will have Isaiah Pacheco, 21. Pacheco, massive winner of the NFL draft. Now, of course, this is a team that could still go trade for Dalvin Cook. This is a team that could still go sign Leonard Fournette, Ezekiel Elliott. We really don't know exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs will be doing, but the Chiefs so far this offseason have added nobody at running back. Isaiah Pacheco finished very strong at the end of his rookie year. They were heavily involving him in this offense in the playoffs when all the cards were on the table and when everything mattered. Now they don't invest into another running back going into year two. This is a pretty damn good spot. Now keep in mind the Chiefs really don't want to run the ball, so I don't know. Pacheco's not a great pass catcher. However, if the Chiefs don't add one of those veteran running backs that are kind of floating around right now in the market, you could probably see Pacheco continuously climbing up these rankings until maybe 15, 16 by the time we get to the start of the year. Now, 22, we're going to have Cam Akers. With Akers, yes, they bring in a running back that a lot of people are excited about. Please don't convince yourself Zach Evans is going to be anything. Akers is him. Akers is that guy. I'm not worried about it. Now, the issue is with Cam Akers, the torn Achilles. Yes, he wasn't good last year. I don't know. I'm not worried about Zach Evans. I don't know if Cam Akers is 100% recovered and he was the player that he was at Florida State. If we knew that, if he never tore his Achilles, he'd probably be higher in these rankings. Now, 23, 24, we're going to go with some veterans here. We're going to go Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon. We don't know the situation that Dalvin Cook will be in. I mean, right now there are reports saying, oh, Dalvin Cook's going to get traded to Miami. Dalvin Cook's going to get traded to Kansas City. Oh, Dalvin Cook's going to stay in Minnesota. Oh, Dalvin Cook's going to restructure his contract. I don't know right now. There's naturally a lot of uncertainty. I am just willing to maybe pull the parachute and exit on these running backs a little bit too early rather than a little bit too late. And I'd rather take those ascending players like an Isaiah Pacheco versus the descending players. Now, we're going to have Mixon here at 24. Now, if you're looking at underdog ADP right now, if you were following these rankings, you're probably not going to draft a lot of Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook in a lot of those drafts going ahead of someone like Damien Pierce. I'm not going to agree with that. But if you were following these rankings, you're actually going to end up with a lot of Joe Mixon, as Joe Mixon's going in round 7 of some of these underdog drafts. But I think that's all I have for y'all. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. As always, if you want to get in a draft today, make sure you go check out Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK. If you want to get my rankings, those can be found on flockfantasy.com. Use promo code FLOCK there as well. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you and really hope you have a great day.